Okay, we've sewn our pieces together into strips or rows, and I don't press right away because I know it's tempting to press, but I found that if I wait and press all of my rows once I have all of them sewn, then I can grab every other row and I'm going to press the seams up, and then I grab every other row and I press the seams down. Those are going to give me opposing seams, and then when I have those pressed, then I'm going to sew those together in pairs, and I will sew pairs across the project and then sew those pairs together until all of the stars come together. Let me show you how to get these 6 fabrics coming together. That can be a tricky intersection there, and I want to do a close-up to show you how you can get those points to match very easily without pinning, which is how I do them. Okay, here on this particular seam, I'm joining these 3 fabrics where they're sewn together, and I have a nice seam allowance there, with the one where I exaggerated a bad one, where I have a lot of extra fabric. And I wouldn't leave this in the quilt, but I'm exaggerating so you can see it. And we're going to join these 2 together, and I want to make that point there match that point there. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put right sides together on this, and I will line up these edges along here, and then I lock this first seam. I have the seams on the back side are both pressed in, and those on the front side are both pressed out, so they're going to lock really nicely. And I'm going to lock this first seam, so I have them butted up against each other right here along the top, and this edge is lined up. And as I go to feel for this next one, there's a gap, or it's overlapped. So what I want to do, I would think, I'm going to slide this down to get that locked. But as soon as I move this down, keeping these edges aligned, then this top one now has a gap in it. So it's not aligned anymore. So we're going to slide it back up, start with this edge aligned, this one locked, and now we're going to slide this seam that we're locked on along that seam until we get the next one locked. And whenever I have that locked and I can feel it, I've got this locked and I have this seam locked. These are lined up because they're the right ones. And this one, this is the piece that was way off, so that's going to be sticking out. But when I go to sew that together just outside of that seam where those 2 stitches cross, I will get a wonderful point on the front side. I think you can see that there. That's a great point for being that far off on the seam. So we're going to lock the top seam first, then slide along that seam until we get the bottom one locked. Then we're going to stitch just outside. And as long as we make sure that we have enough seam allowance beyond each of those points, we'll be fine. We'll get our points to match, and no one will know what's on the back side, and I won't tell. Okay, so we've pieced our top together, and this one was made by Anita, who does our shipping. She was testing our pattern, First Stars, and this is her very first quilt. She did an excellent job. And I'm using her example to show and talk about these borders. If you look at them, you may ask which border goes on first, because it's hard to tell. And it's using a technique called partial seams. What we're going to do, and what Anita did, is she sewed this first border on just a part of the way, just along here. Then she came in and added her second border, then the third border, then the fourth border, and then finished out that first seam the rest of the way. It's a great technique to understand. Lots of block designs use it, or you can change out your next border design if you want to on your next quilt. It makes for a fun bit of a twist on the design. So this was great. I also want to mention this quilt behind me. I had a customer request information on how to do the Star of David, which is the design here that's in the book Oh My Stars. I've shown today how to do the 6-pointed stars that are on the outside that represent the 12 tribes of Israel. And if you watch for my other video coming out soon, that is on Not Your Grandmother's Log Cabin, I'll demonstrate how to sew these together in the center, this one Star of David. It's using the technique that we use there, which is basically a log cabin design, but using 60-degree angles rather than squares. So, I'm Marci Baker of Alicia's Attic. I hope you've enjoyed learning about 6-pointed stars the easy way from the clear view of quilting. And I hope you enjoy your quilting. Thanks for watching.